Okay, our next speaker is Kathryn Andries. Yesterday you heard from her husband, Patrick Andries, so we published both of their books. But Kathryn, this is her second book that we have published. What was the name of the first one? I'm trying to remember.
Soul Choices, 6 Paths to Find Your Life Purpose.
And this one is?
Soul Choices, 6 Paths to Fulfilling Relationships.
Okay, so they're connected.
Yep, it's a sequel.
And you also, we did a workbook, didn't we?
For the first one, there's a workbook, yes.
Okay. And you're going to have a workshop too, aren't you?
Workshop on Monday on relationships, yep.
Okay. So Kathryn is going to be talking about her new book. Okay, Kathryn Andries.
Thanks, Dolores. Thanks, guys. Thank you. So Armand's song was great today because we're going to talk about projection as one of the things. So what we just did was we saw a montage of eyes, hands, past lives to present lives, astrology charts, numerology. And what we're going to be talking about is a new approach to relationships, using these 6 different paths to understand ourselves. And the question that was posed on the first slide was, who are you? And so when it comes to relationships, we can look at ourselves as a conglomeration of influences coming from these 6 different areas. We are the totality of all the experiences we have had in our past lives, which vibrate through the patterns in our eyes, the lines on our hands and our fingerprints. Our past and present is seen on our astrology charts and our numerology charts. So this is a fascinating look at understanding ourselves and others. So the great thing about relationships are that they're always a choice. And we really have 4 choices of how we're going to do relationships. And before I explain these, I'd like everybody to write down the name of somebody you're currently in a relationship with. And if you don't have paper, just think of somebody in your mind, and we'll be working with this person today. So one of the choices we have in relationships is to choose people with compatible influences. An example is the earth and the water element. They work very complementary. In other words, earth gives water direction, and the water nourishes the earth. So this type of relationship is really nice because each person complements the other and supports the other. Then, of course, we can take a harder route and choose people with conflicting influences. And that tends to cause conflict, fights, but some people need that way to learn. They need a really strong conflict to learn. And then sometimes we choose someone who's exactly like ourselves. It's like looking in the mirror. And those types of relationships help us see ourselves clearly. It's like, boy, I married my sister or my brother, myself. And then, how many of you have had a relationship with an opposite person, friendship or otherwise, okay? We're always drawn to that mysterious part of ourselves that dwells inward, which is our opposite. And if we're unbalanced and we're not bringing out that opposite part of ourselves, we're going to choose friends, bosses, or mates who are opposite to help us bring balance. So those types of relationships can bring balance as well as a lot of chemistry because it's our opposite. So with the person that you just wrote down on your paper, write down what type of relationship it is. Is it compatible, conflicting? Is it somebody with almost the same influence as you, or is it somebody who's your opposite? And so we ask ourselves, it's your choice, which is the best, you might be wondering. Am I supposed to choose somebody who's my opposite or who's the same? Well, it's really your choice, and a lot of it's based on your karma, what you need. So you can choose strife or peace, it's your choice, or the same person or somebody who's your opposite. It's really your choice. So that's the interesting part when you become aware of your influences, you choose with awareness what you want. So, the fun thing about relationships is when two or more come together, something happens. One is that a third party emerges, which is the relationship. It's like a third person that's born when two people come together. And so we're going to be looking at that because no longer is it just you and the other person, but there's like a third entity there that you have to understand and nurture as well. And then the other thing that happens is your energies and the other person's energies commingle. And then all sorts of things can happen. Firecrackers, fights, anger, complete love and bliss. It depends how the energies interact. So by using these 6 paths, we can understand what's going to happen when you get together with this person. So you can be aware and work with that. It's very exciting. Okay, so we're going to start with one of the paths, which is past lives. And one of the ways that we can learn if we've been in a relationship with somebody is getting a past life relationship reading. And there's a lot you can learn. First of all, you can understand your past karma, because you two people were drawn together again for a reason. And a lot of times we go around bumbling around wondering, well, what is it that we have to learn together again? And if you're in confusion about that, obtaining a past life reading will detail what is the karma that still needs to be resolved, because if it's not resolved this lifetime, guess what? You get to come back again next lifetime. And you understand what your purpose is together. And when you know what your purpose is for meeting with somebody, you can fulfill that purpose and then move on, and both people benefit. And lastly, which is so important, is to understand what were the roles you played in your past life. Now, so often we become attached to the roles that we've played in the past. Maybe somebody was your mother and you were the child. And this lifetime, you're the same age, you're friends, but the other person still wants to be your mother, and it's not working out. And so when you see what the roles were, you say, oh, now I understand why I always try to mother that person or baby them. And you have to realize, well, it's different now. I can't do that anymore. Now we're friends. And so finding out the roles helps you break clear of those and start fresh this lifetime. So right now, with the person that you wrote down on your paper, I'd like you, just the first thing that comes to your mind, write down what you think your karma is with that person. And by that, I mean, what is it that you have to learn? And if you don't know, just leave it blank, but it will probably come to you. And then write down, what do you think your roles were in the past life? Were you the mother? Were you the father, the teacher? Write down what you think. Now, there's several reasons why we can be drawn together again. And this is often revealed in a past life reading. We already talked about uncompleted karmic lessons. Sometimes we don't learn the lesson, and that's why we're drawn together. An unfulfilled purpose due to an early death or other reason. Things do occur where the purpose doesn't get fulfilled. An unrequited love. Somebody really loved you in a past life but did not have the opportunity to complete that love together. I had a friend, and she was about 30 years old. She wasn't young. She'd been in many relationships, and she called me one day and said, I met this great guy, and we're getting along great. I said, oh, good. And then about 2 months later, she called me and said, we're getting married. I said, what? She said, yeah, I asked him to marry me. And everybody thought this was the craziest thing. So they decided to get a past life reading together to understand why they just felt this immediate love. And sure enough, the past life revealed that they were married in a past life, and a month after their marriage, he was killed. Unrequited love. So this lifetime, there was no worrying or need to spend a lot of time in the dating stage. They knew they had to be together again. Unfortunately, sometimes there's a desire for revenge. Somebody wants to meet up with you again for that, or repay you for their kindness. And isn't that lovely when you didn't have time to receive their kindness in a past life, so you're going to get it this lifetime? A strong love continues. That's usually the case. Love never dies, as we've heard, and that will often draw two people together in any type of relationship. Similar life missions. Okay, if you have a life mission and somebody else has a similar one, you're going to be drawn together and you can help each other out and work together. We see that all the time. Mozart with his father, they were both musicians. His father dedicated his life to helping Mozart, planned his concert schedules, taught him music. Perfect example, similar life missions. Maybe Angeline and Armand, you have similar life missions, music, creating together. And of course, the main one is the desire to learn from one another. So if any of these resonates with you about the person you wrote on your paper, go ahead and write that down. Okay, now we're going to talk about the next path, which is family. And I love this quote, if you can't get rid of the family skeleton, you might as well dance with it. Make it dance, okay? We've all got those family skeletons in our closet, and the family that we choose, we basically know before we come into the body, we're going to be stuck with these people for about 18 years. So there's a lot of understanding about relationships that we have with our family. So what I teach is, if you can unlock why you chose your family, you can unlock a lot of your relationship karma. And you don't have to marry your father or your mother, because you can work it out with your birth parents and then move on. So why do we choose the family that we choose? Again, we can look at a lot of different reasons. And one of them is we may choose a friend or mate who's similar to our own parents. This is very common. We often will choose people that are going to trigger the same lessons as our mom and dad. How many of you have chosen a relationship like that at least once? Okay, they trigger the same lessons as mom and dad. Or we choose a partner who's completely opposite from our parents because we didn't like those qualities. So we say, I'm never going to marry someone like my dad. I'm going to marry the complete opposite. It's very common. We choose partners that we know our parents will dislike as a way to rebel against them. And of course, that type of relationship normally doesn't last. Talking about projection, here we go. Growing up, we've had 18 years of our life to form a projection of what we think men should be like or women. And then we're going to take that projection and we put it on the people that we meet. It's so common to do that. So we have to break free of those projections, because eventually the projection fades off and we see that the person really isn't who we thought they were. So family is a key component to understanding relationships. All right, so let's move on to numerology. And we have what's called a life path number. And when I said we often choose a mate who has a similar life path as ours, or a friend or a boss, we need to know what our own life path number is. And I happen to choose Abraham Lincoln because it's such an interesting life path number. Basically what we do is we add up the month, day, and year of birth and reduce that to a single digit. So Abraham Lincoln's life path number came out to a 5, which is so interesting because the number 5 has to do with freedom and responsibility. And his whole focus when he became president was, freeing the slaves. He was all about freedom. So he was totally in alignment with his life purpose. Now, I didn't happen to calculate his wife's life purpose number. I don't know if it was in alignment with his, but he surely was in alignment with his life path. And the more in alignment with you are, with your life purpose, you're most likely going to choose people who vibrate your same life path. Okay? Now, let's look at the Clintons. How many of you think that they were on target and had similar numbers in any way? Raise your hand if you think that. Okay? I chose them for a specific reason because another number we can calculate in numerology is called the expression number, which is the type of person we want to be. Now, when I add up Bill Clinton's birth name, William Jefferson Blythe, it comes to a number 6, which means he wanted to be of service this lifetime. Hillary, her birth name, or actually her married name, also comes to a number 6. So guess what? They really matched up in terms of they wanted to be the same type of people. They were both lawyers, then they both went into politics. So in a lot of ways, they came together for a specific reason. So if your expression number matches somebody else's, that's a glue that's going to hold you two together for a long time. Okay, Sonny and Cher. How many people used to watch them? I used to love that show growing up. Watching them sing together, it was just like they were made to be together. So did their personalities click? Yes, they did. Now, they were different. Sonny's personality number was a number 9, which means he wanted to be a leader, but he also wanted to be a humanitarian, which is eventually what led him into politics. Now, Cher, her personality number was a 1, which is very similar to the 9 because 1s like to be leaders, pioneers. They kind of want to be different, which of course she was very unique with her costumes and everything about her was unique. So they were two very unique people that came together, and because their personalities clicked on TV, they kind of blossomed, and together they did. So if you have the same personality number of somebody, that's like your best friend. You like to do the same things, you like the same people. It's going to be a very compatible relationship. Now, we're actually going to do a composite relationship number right now. This is Gandhi and his wife, Kasturba. And the composite relationship number is that third entity that I talked about that forms when you make a relationship. You have you, your other person, and then the third person, which is the relationship. And you have to nurture that. So the composite number describes this relationship that you've created. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your birth month. So for Gandhi, he was born October 2nd. So October is the 10th month. And we add that with the number 2 the second day, and we get 12. And we add 1 plus 2 equals 3. And then we take his wife's. She was born April 11th. So April's the 4th month plus 11 equals 15, reduces to a 6. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add those two numbers, which equals a 9. And this is the purpose of your relationship. Now, the number 9 means that this couple came together to be world servers, humanitarians, to move humanity forward. Well, I would definitely say that they fulfilled the purpose of their relationship. I think they got married when she was like 14 or something, or 11, very, very young, and they stayed together the entire time, and she supported him, and together they really changed the world. Now, what happens if you find your composite relationship number and you don't fulfill that? That's when the relationship starts to crumble, and it's like a plant that isn't cared for. It just kind of withers and dies. So you need to understand the composite relationship number so you know how do you fulfill that purpose. So go ahead and take a minute and calculate the composite relationship number if you know the person's month and day of birth. And in the book, you can look up the number and see if you're fulfilling that composite relationship number. Sure, 31, you do 3 plus 1 equals 4. Okay? If you get a double-digit number, 11 or 22, as you see here, don't reduce 11 and 22, but all other numbers, to reduce them, you just add the two numbers together to a single digit. Okay? All right. And again, the book will teach you how to calculate that. All right. So now we're going to move on to astrology. And everyone's heard the saying, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And there's some truth to that. Because on your astrology chart, if you're a female, the planet Mars represents what you see as the ideal man. And on a male's chart, you look at the planet Venus, and that describes what he sees as the ultimate female. So, for example, a planet is in a particular sign. So let's say the man's Venus is in Scorpio. If he finds a woman with a lot of Scorpio in her, he will always be attracted to her because he will see her as the ultimate Venus, because Venus is what man sees as the ultimate female. And on a female's chart, if her Mars is in a sign such as Sagittarius, she'll be drawn to Sagittarian men and will always be attracted to them, but she'll say, oh, this is the ultimate man. So that makes for a great relationship. Now, with astrology, we can compare, for example, planet to planet. We can look at your sun sign and somebody else's sun sign to see if you're compatible or not. We can look at your Mars to somebody else's Mars to see, are you kind of aggressive in the same way, or do you fight in the same way? Okay, you can look at the Mercuries on somebody's chart. Mercury's about the communication planet. So are you going to communicate well together? You're going to look at your planet Mercury and somebody else's and see, are you going to fight all the time, or are you going to have great communication? Those are three important planets to look at in terms of relationships. I remember one time I was in a very challenging relationship, and I went to an astrologer, and she's looking at my chart and this other person's chart, and she just looked at me and said, you two must have really interesting arguments. I said, yeah, they kind of go on for days and months and they never get resolved. And of course, if you can't communicate, it's not going to last very long, and it didn't. You can also compare different planets to each other to see, for example, if you compare somebody's sun sign to your moon, you're going to see if your life purpose is going to be supported by the other person. Or Venus to Mars. Here we go back with the male-female planets. Are you going to love and receive love in the same way? So there's many other things you can look at. I love this saying, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter. When my husband and I were getting married, before that we had a wedding shower, and everybody had to give us some funny quotes. And somebody said, yeah, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter. So basically what that means, I took it as, when your energy mixes with somebody else's, anything can happen. Bliss and happiness or total conflict. It's all about the interaction of the planets when we're talking about astrology. The numbers, the karma, your eyes and your hands. So you can kind of be forewarned if you look at each other's astrology charts and say, wow, these planets are always going to be warring with each other. This isn't going to be good. Or I can deal with this. I understand how these planets are working. I think we can work through this. So it's your choice, but you need to know what you're getting into. And one of the ways we do that is we take your astrology chart and somebody else's, whether it's maybe you're thinking of taking a new job and you can actually find out what your boss's astrology chart is. Oh, what's your birth date? Do you remember what time you were born? You know, you get that information. Pull up his or her chart and see what's it going to be like with this person. And so I did Sunny and Cher again. So Sunny's chart is on the inside, and then we put Cher's chart on the outside. So what we're seeing is how Cher is going to influence Sunny. And the main thing that I want to show you is in astrology, we have these little houses, we call them, like pie pieces. And if we look in house 10, this is the house of career. And we see that Cher has 3 planets influencing his 10th house. So basically, we would conclude that she's going to be a real boost for his career. And basically, before he met her, he really wasn't famous. She kind of made him famous, or the energies together. Also, in the 8th house, which is the house of sexuality, it's the house of inner transformation, she has 2 major planets influencing him. So I think he was highly attracted to her, and she helped bring about transformations within him. So overall, it was a very beneficial relationship for him. Okay, so when we have this relationship, we have 1 + 1 = 3. Now, I know the math is not correct, but what I'm trying to show you is 1 person plus 1 person equals a 3rd person. And in astrology, that's called a composite chart. And that means we take all your birth information and somebody else's, and we put them together, and we get a new astrology chart. A baby has been born between you and this other person. And this is similar to the composite numerology number. So if you want to find out what is the purpose of my relationship with this person, you can get a past life relationship reading, or combine your charts and get a composite chart and see what the purpose is. And if that purpose is not being fulfilled, it's going to fizzle. But if you fulfill that composite chart, that's glue that holds you and the other person together. So it's a wonderful thing to do. So how many people are familiar with Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera? 2 Mexican artists, and they had a very interesting life together. They married and were both famous artists. And they stayed together their entire life, or their entire marriage. So I wanted to look at that and say, I bet they fulfilled their purpose together. So I took a look at their composite astrology chart. And guess what? I saw exactly what I was hoping to see. Their composite astrology chart shows right here, we have house 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th house is the house of creativity. And they have 3 major planets there. They have the planet Venus, the Sun, and Mercury. 3 most prominent planets in the 5th house. This tells me that if I didn't even know who this was, I would say your purpose together is to create beauty and create together. And they did that exactly, and hence their relationship blossomed, and they stayed together for the entire relationship. I think also the 12th house, which is the house of karma. Anytime you do a composite chart with somebody else, and you find that you have significant planets in this last house, that means you have a big karmic lesson or a big karma to fulfill with that person. So this is great. They have to be together. When you see planets here, they have to be. And because it's the moon and Saturn, they had some big lessons to work out together. And that's kind of like a glue that holds them together. And they did have a lot of ups and downs in their relationship, but they ended up fulfilling those as well. Okay, we're going to look again at Bill Clinton and Hillary, just to look at them from an astrological perspective to see, was their composite chart fulfilled? Well, completely different chart, as you notice, because the planets are over here. So let's look here. This is the 10th house, which is the house of career. And we have the planets Pluto and Saturn, which is in Leo, which is all about power. So if I looked at this chart, I would say these 2 people came together to be very powerful figures in the world and to learn about the proper use of power. In addition to that, they came together because this 11th house, they have Mercury, the Sun, and Mars. The 11th house is the house of service to the world and humanity. So they came together to be world servers, to devote themselves to a greater cause. And they took their relationship and career in that direction. So they definitely nurtured their composite chart, which is why, despite the infidelities and so forth, they're still together. Okay? Have you done Bill and Monica's? I didn't, but I would love to do that. That's a great idea. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the eyes. And this is the study of rayed iris analysis. I've been doing iris readings at my table, as well as numerology readings and some palmistry readings. So the eyes are the window to the soul, just like all the other influences. And we have patterns in our eyes that describe our personality, gifts and talents, life purpose. So once again, if we look at your eyes and somebody else's eyes, we can see, are these two people going to blend together well, or are they going to be in conflict? So you have to understand your own influences, and I'm just going to point out a couple things. This iris pattern is actually called the flower iris because there are flower petals throughout this eye. Do you see these petals? This is a flower. And so this person is very social, very creative, loves change, loves variety, loves to be with people. So this type of person wants to have fun and be with people, so she needs to find somebody who will nurture her in that way and like those same kind of things. This is her opposite, or his opposite. Now here we have little flecks, which are called jewels. And this iris type is called a jewel. And this person lives from the mind, whereas the flower lives life through the emotions. So those of you who like opposite relationships, a flower and a jewel are opposite and may find each other very attractive and balance each other out. Okay? So we'll just look at some other eyes. This is a stream iris, very calming person. These are the healers at the fair, the mediators. So in a relationship, we seek these people out to give us calm and balance. They love peaceful coexistence, definitely not want conflict. And this is their opposite, which is called the shaker. And very radical person. They have jewels and flowers, so they're extremist people. And so if they're too extreme and out of balance, they're going to seek out their opposite, which is the stream, to kind of calm them down. And if the stream needs some shaking up, they're going to choose the shaker, and they make a perfect balance. So this is the flower and the jewel in a relationship. And this is a very common relationship, and I'll just give you a little scenario. So flowers bring joy and socialness to a room. So think of how you feel when somebody brings you flowers. They uplift you, they're beautiful, they make you feel good, they're happy, they smell good, right? So this person at a party, let's say it's a female, very flirtatious, looks very pretty, the life of the party, okay, very at ease, can connect emotionally with people, but she jumps around from one thing to the next. You know, she was a yoga instructor last year. Now she's going to be an actress. And when that gets boring, she's going to move on to something else. They love variety, sometimes not very stable. So into the party walks the jewel. He's still in his three-piece suit from work. He's the CEO of a company. Maybe he's been there 20 years, makes six-figure salary, but very ill at ease in a social situation. And he sees this beautiful flowing flower female who seems so at ease. Boy, he feels drawn to her. And, you know, they start talking, and when she hears that he makes a six-figure salary, says, oh, this is interesting. He could support my acting career and help me get me focused, and yeah. So it's instant attraction. Now, if it lasts, is the question. She has to become more stable, and he has to loosen up. Otherwise, he becomes controlling like her dad. And she says, oh, forget this, and they split up. So opposites attract, yes. Very fun. Okay, different types of eyes. This is another opposite relationship here. This person, see the rings around the iris? Ring around the collar, ring around the eyes, okay? And this person has little puffy white clouds. This is called the ring of harmony, and this is called the ring of freedom. This is an opposite relationship where the ring of harmony, I actually read somebody this morning who had the ring of harmony. This person in relationship is here to heal and serve. Oh, I'll do anything you want. I just want to bring harmony. And, you know, you really need fixing. I can really help you. And the ring of freedom is like, great. I'm going to take advantage of this situation because I've got a lot of goals to fulfill. This person is goal-oriented. And so opposites, and he can help her, or vice versa, create a backbone and create boundaries, because she has done with this harmony ring. She accepts everyone in. And likewise, she helps him be a little bit more compassionate, because the ring of freedom often lacks compassion. Okay, let's talk about our hands. Palmistry is another area that determine how we're going to interact with somebody. So we have 4 basic hand types. Over here is the earth hand. This is the real meaty hand. It's real thick. You just want to kind of squeeze that hand. This is the person who's always productive out there working in the garden. If you ever have somebody come work on your house, a gardener or plumber, look at their hands. They're always going to be usually this earth type of hand. They like to be busy, work with their hands. This type of person is the air hand. They've got these kind of long, skinny fingers. See that? This is the air hand, where they're up in their head. They're the intellectuals. So they're not going to be doing all the work like them. They're going to be overseeing the whole work project. So these two in relationship kind of conflicting, because this hand says, let's be practical. He says, well, let's talk about philosophy. It's like, no, I got to get work done. So kind of difficult. Here we have the fire hand, which is fun, enthusiasm. Let's go out to the party and have some fun and enjoy life. And then over here we've got the water hand. Water hand says, oh, but I'm still crying and I'm upset today. I can't go out. Very emotional. So water can put out fire. Maybe not the best match unless they learn from each other. And an example of that, now, look at this picture. We talked about, or Robert Baval talked about Egypt last night, right? So look at the hands of this woman and just notice what's peculiar about the hands. If anybody has an idea, raise your hand. Okay, what do you notice? All the fingers are the same length. Did anybody notice that? Except the thumb, of course. Now, I challenge you, if you look at any Egyptian art, any painting I have seen, they portray the hands with all the fingers the same length. Now, for the Egyptians, each finger had a particular meaning. The Jupiter finger, which people point with, is the spiritual authority finger. The middle finger actually relates to Saturn and basically says, get responsible. So when someone gives you the finger, it's like, get responsible, get in your own lane and drive correctly, whatever. So in Egyptian times, the middle finger was taking care of outer responsibilities. The fourth finger is your identity and your creativity, which interestingly enough, that's where we put the wedding ring, because our identity changes when we get married. Musicians often have very long Jupiter or fourth fingers. And the pinky or the Mercury finger is communication. And for the Egyptians, it was communication with the soul. So why would they portray all the fingers the same length? Did every Egyptian have hands like that? I think what they were trying to show was that they were striving for balance in all the life areas. So you can look at the fingers of people to notice that. So in relationships, in addition to looking at the type of hand, which is the temperament, you want to look at the mount of Venus, and that is this area this big mount under the thumb. Now look at your own and kind of squeeze it. Venus is the planet of pleasure and love. Those of you who have a really thick or pronounced mount of Venus have a large capacity to enjoy the senses, to be very loving. You love food, you love bodily pleasures, all those things. Somebody whose Venus mount is very flat or has a lot of crossed lines, you've restricted your ability to enjoy in relationships. So you want to check out and make sure you and your partner have the same mount of Venus so you can enjoy things together. Now, the other thing we look at in palmistry is my personality going to conflict or be compatible with yours? And we look at the personality point, which is where the earth line, which is this one, connects with the head line. So some of them intersect like this. Some of them just start together and branch off. Some of them have a space, and some of them have a really big space. So if you want to know what yours is, you can stop by my table for a palm reading or look in the book. But this will show you if your personalities are in alignment. So for example, the earth personality is a little bit reserved and holds back because they're very self-conscious. Whereas this person with the big wide gap between the two, this is the fire personality point. They're just going to blurt out what they think to you. And you might be, oh, I can't believe they said that, right? That's what the earth person would say. I would never say that to somebody. And they just blurt it out. The water point's very sensitive and would never say anything to hurt you. And likewise, if you said anything rude to them, they would be so offended. So the way that we communicate is very important in relationships. Now, here's a live example, Princess Diana and Charles. She has a classic water hand. It's easy to get pictures of her because she's always waving. Long hand, long fingers, which means the water palm, very sensitive, very emotional. Prince Charles's hand is more of the earth hand, very practical, to the point. So one of the things we noticed was, he just couldn't handle all her emotionality. And, that was part of the conflict between them. He did not understand her, and she was very intuitive, and even though he wouldn't say he was interested in somebody else, she knew that. She picked up on so many things with that sensitivity, and it's very hard to be in the public eye with a water hand because you absorb everything, criticisms and all. Okay, so in relationships, I want to just briefly talk about attraction. So this is the invisible factor in relationships. Why are we attracted to other people? And what determines that? Well, if you want to attract something to you, a person, 3 things are involved: your subconscious mind, the law of attraction, and visualization. And we can use those 3 things to attract somebody or something to us. We all know that. Most of us have been involved in metaphysics. Well, how many of you have tried to use the powers of the law of attraction that we're told, hey, if you visualize something, it'll come to you, right? And it hasn't come? Raise your hand. It's happened to me, right? That person I've been visualizing for 20 years isn't here yet. I thought this was supposed to work. Well, a lot of times we're not told this, which is, why aren't I getting the relationships I want? That's a big question I get all the time, whether it's a mate relationship or other. Well, the first thing is we've got these subconscious beliefs that are harboring within us. Maybe your mind's saying that you're really worthless, and so you're attracting people who treat you worthless, even though you say, but I don't want that, but your subconscious mind is playing that record. Another thing is, this is great, you attract what you are. So you can name all these great types of relationships you want in your life. I want somebody who's nice and friendly and compassionate. But if you're mean and grouchy all the time, you're going to attract that. You attract what you are. Karma. This is huge. When you don't attract the people that you want in your life, maybe it's just that you have some lessons to work out with that crabby person, and that's why that person's in your life and not the perfect person. So if you can understand that and learn the lesson, you can get on with it. Okay? Doesn't mean the law of attraction isn't working for you. Maybe your karma is you get what you need. Remember that song by I think it was the Rolling Stones, you get what you need. The person you want doesn't actually represent the qualities you truly desire. This often happens where somebody comes to me and says, I really want to attract this person named Bill to me. He's great. And this person shows me the list of what they want. But this guy, Bill, never is attracted to them. And they say, why? We think we know people, but in reality, this person, Bill, is nothing like what she thinks. And so she's spinning her wheels. So this is what I say. The cure is visualize from the inside out. So I teach people never put down a particular person that you want, or a particular job or situation, because we often don't see clearly. What I say is write the list of qualities that you want in a person, and then let the universe do the work. It will draw to you the perfect person, and if the person you want matches those qualities, you'll get that person anyway. But if they don't, you've just saved yourself a lot of heartache by not attracting them. So that's what I mean by visualize from the inside out. Even with jobs, if you think this job is perfect for you, okay, detach yourself from the particular job, write down the qualities you want in the job, because that might not be for you, okay? All right. Now, another thing that's really helpful in relationship is to understand the type of relationship you are in. So with the person you wrote down, I'd like you to think about that for a minute. And what comes first to you? Do you think it's a past life karmic situation? Are you in a relationship with somebody who's your opposite? Somebody with similar characteristics or similar lessons? Similar lessons attract. You get to work through them together with a mate instead of by yourself. Is it a parental type of relationship where they're matching your image of a mom or dad? Is it a relationship where you both have similar missions or similar vibrations, which is basically the same as similar characteristics? Is it a student-teacher relationship where you're learning from each other? Is it to heal together, or is it the shadow? If you can understand the role and type of relationship you're in, you're going to gain a deeper understanding of your connection. So go ahead and write down just what comes to you. What relationship type do you think you're in with the person that you wrote down? Okay, so projection. Destructive behaviors that can destroy a relationship. Projection, codependence, victimizing, saving others, controlling. All these things. And like Armand said in the song, it's not me, it's you, it's your projection, right? It's so easy to do that. But what I've done in the book, relationship book, is this. I've taken all the influences and I've said, which of the influences, whether it's astrology or palmistry or whatever, are most likely to be involved in projection? I can project my image of who I want you to be. I can project people from my past. But you might say, I never project. But you might be the object of projection. How many people have ever been the object of somebody else's projection? Okay, it's no fun. How many of you maybe have projected onto others? So look, what I have found is if we've been projectors or been projected on, we can tell from past life readings if we've done that. If you are a number 1 in numerology, number 1s like to control and be in charge. They likely project onto others, whereas number 2s in numerology get projected on all the time because number 2s say, I'll do whatever you want, I'll be whoever you want. So they're the perfect object for projection. So when you know your influences, you're prepared. If you're a number 2, you have a red flag come up when you see somebody projecting on you. You say, oh, I got to watch those people because I can be a target of projection real easily. In astrology, I find the people who project a lot are Aries because they're fire. Leo is fire. They're like, hey, you're going to do this and be this for me. Fire loves to do that. And who receives projection? Virgo, Pisces people, because they're so mutable, watery, they'll take on the projection anybody gives them. And the planet Neptune is a very delusional planet. So if Neptune is really pronounced in your chart, you're a good target for projection. And fire palms love to project on water palms because water takes the shape of whatever container you put it in. Okay, codependence. You might say, I'm not codependent. Well, if you're a number 2 or number 6 in numerology, you most likely could fall into codependence real easily. Cancer, Pisces, Libra, and Virgo can be codependent. The flower iris and the harmony ring, like the little dots, the harmony ring and the flower pattern, are natural people pleasers, and people pleasers are almost always codependent and have to work through that so it doesn't destroy their relationships. And the water palm. Victims. A lot of people in relationships fall into the victim, and they play the victim. And so they give up their power. So do you do that? Well, number 2 in numerology likes to be the victim. The harmony ring, like we talked about, because it's, oh, poor me, they did that to me. The water palm. No, it's not my fault. This all happened to me. So what you can do when you find out your influences and your partners, you can call them on it and say, but yeah, you're the one most likely to be a victim. So, don't deny it. All right, I want to finish by talking about timing, because metaphysically, time doesn't exist, right? We're all in a now, and that's a wonderful concept. But on a practical level, we do have to deal with time. And we all want to know, when's that great relationship going to come, right? And so this is a picture of an oak tree. It's all beautiful, mature oak tree. And what I say is that we're the acorn that one day is going to evolve into this beautiful oak tree. But we all have our own cycle of evolution. When your evolving takes place is totally different than somebody else's. And so we can use timing as a way to gain patience and understand the unfoldment of your life. So we use astrology and numerology to understand your particular individual unfoldment of life. So the planets in astrology are always moving and bringing new events and things into your life. So maybe you got married when you were 35 and your friend got married when she was 20. And maybe you thought, boy, something's wrong with me. I didn't get married till I'm 35. What's wrong? Your unfoldment is different. Everybody's acorn is different that you start with. And so by understanding your unfoldment, you will understand and have patience. And we have certain universal events that are going to trigger your particular unfolding of your soul. And I just want to talk about two of them. One is called the Saturn return. And this occurs every 29 and a half years. So everybody at age 29 kicked off an event called the Saturn return. And Saturn is the planet of responsibility, and it's a wake-up call, and it says, okay, you need to get responsible. So if you look back at your life between the ages of 29, 30, 31, you probably found there are some major events. Maybe you changed jobs, you finally found your place in life. You got married, you had kids. Big events happen then. And then again, if you live long enough, it comes around again at age 59. And you get a second Saturn return. It's your wake-up call. And an unfolding process occurs again. It's like a tidal wave, and if you take the opportunities that come during those Saturn returns, your whole life can blossom. And then we have another huge event, which we call the midlife crisis, but in astrology, we call it the Uranus opposition. Happens to everybody about the age of 40. And that's what happens when all of a sudden you say, it's time to make a course correction. So what we do is we look back and we want to fulfill the dreams that we didn't fulfill when we were 20. So what you'll find is some people go back to school and get that college degree that they never finished when they were 20. Other people say, I've wanted to be a writer my whole life. I'm going to sit down and write this novel. Now, in the negative, some people just go crazy with it and say, I'm going to go buy a $50,000 sports car and have an affair. Okay? And that doesn't really work out because that's not really what the Uranus opposition is about. But it's a selfish time because Uranus says it's time to be unique. And so we do something that pleases us. It's time to get, So it's a very important time to unfold yourself. Now, we can also use astrology and numerology to plan the perfect wedding day. And the Egyptians and all the ancient cultures planned the time when they would do buildings. I bet they planned the time when they would build the pyramids based on the perfect astrological and numerological significance of that day. So if you're going to get married or you're going to have a big event in your life, consult an astrologer or numerologist to find the perfect day. You can look at place the planets Sun, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter so that they really shine, because that day is like an imprint. This morning, Annie talked about your birth imprint and your death imprint. Well, big events in your life create a particular imprint. So if you choose a particular day, you're setting yourself up for success. Okay? So I planned my wedding day, consulted an astrologer, and it was a great day, and it's been great ever since. It's just a tool to help you. Okay? Numerologically, if you pick a day like June 12th, 1980, what you're going to do is just add up all the days, and it comes to a number 9. This is the type of person you're inviting to your wedding. So based on your personality and your spouse's or whoever, you can decide what kind of energy you want for the day. Not, for a wedding, actually a number 2 is great because 2 is about relationships. So take care in who you're going to invite. So I know you all came to want to know what are the secrets to extraordinary relationships. Everybody want to know the answer to that? Okay, I've given you some tools. So here it is. Read the book, Soul Choices, 6 Paths to Fulfilling Relationships. The last chapter does give tons of suggestions of how to take a relationship from the ordinary to the extraordinary, and it's all in there. So I'll be signing the book after the talk if you want to come by and purchase that. So thank you very much.